I was kind of afraid to stand behind him. Anyway, he's like a big teddy bear, right, Ms. Jabara? Yes? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Jabara. Last but definitely not least is a very special person, my mentor, my forever mentor, and she is a member. She was a special person to the public schools, and she's a very special person to LULAC too, to the LULAC family, Dr. Rosa Castro Feinberg. Dr. Castro Feinberg is a member of the LULAC Florida State Education Committee and the Education Committee Chair for the Embassy Council, as well as for LULAC's International Embassy. A former teacher, a retired faculty member from Florida International University, and as a member of the Miami-Dade County School Board from 1986 to 1996, 86 to 96. She was the first Latina elected countywide. She will present a student's perspective, and I'm sure she's going to be very good at it, as she advocates ardently for our vulnerable students. Thank you, Rosie, for your continued advocacy on behalf of our students. The mic is yours.
I'm going to talk from here, because that way I get another 30 seconds before Maria casts her shadow. Now, as you can see, it hasn't been too long since I was a student myself, so I'm going to present the student's perspective, focusing on the accountability part of these changes that are coming upon us, and focusing on one of those groups of vulnerable students, the ESOL student, the child learning English as an additional language. Now, we've all been told many times that the new standards are more rigorous, that the new standards will take us to more advanced levels of learning, and that sounds wonderful. But when you think about the other part of it, when the standards get harder, the tests get harder. And already we have many students who, in this era of No Child Left Behind, are left behind. This is all the more true. Well, it's true for special ed students. It's true probably for the little kids, the kindergarten, first, second, third graders. It's probably true for children in poverty. It's probably even more true for children who are homeless. Maybe true for children who are, whose parents are incarcerated or who are in foster care settings. Many different varieties of vulnerable students, unfortunately. But there's one thing that makes the ESOL students stand out, and that is that nobody has been able to answer this question really well. Here's the question. If you don't understand the questions, how can you give the right answer? That's the crust of the issue. Now, we have new standards coming, accelerated levels of learning. We have new tests coming, harder and harder and harder. What happened in New York when they had the first assessment based on Common Core standards? Everybody went down 30 points. ESOL kids ended up with single-digit scores. Single-digit, from 1 to 9. Now, if that happens here, even if the scores are not valid representations of what the child learns, the consequences come to bear nonetheless. Might not get promoted from one grade to another, might not get promoted, might drop out, with all of the consequences that that has for the child, the family, the community, and the state. Now, what can we do about this? Well, in the case of ESOL students, at least, there are answers and alternatives. Because a year ago, by the end of March 2012, the Commissioner's Task Force on Inclusion and Accountability had completed its work of crafting recommendations for making the accountability system more just, more fair, and with more accurate results, for ESOL and for ESC students. They came up with 35 recommendations. Only 5 of them were taken to the state board. The other 30 are on a shelf, like old curriculum standards. About a month ago, the governor issued an executive order. Section 3C of that executive order says, Commissioner, please tell your your State Board of Ed to renegotiate the testing provisions for ESOL students with the U.S. Department of Education through the waiver, the ESEA waiver process. That opens the door for renewed requests for implementation of those wonderful recommendations of the Task Force for Accountability for ESOL students. In your packet of papers, Maria, where is their packet of, they have them in their hands, or they have, okay. In your packet are 3 sample letters from LULAC members to the governor and to the commissioner. And they say, hey, come on, let's implement these recommendations of the task force, the ELL recommendations, so that we have more accurate results from accountability that's applied to ESOL students. And that's where I'm hoping you will help. Tonight, before you forget, take your watch off and put it on the other arm. It's so uncomfortable. You remember you have something to do? Do that. And when you get home, send an email to the governor, send an email to the commissioner. In that packet, you see the contact information, you see all the detail you might want, but really all you have to say is, please implement the recommendations of the Task Force on Inclusion and Accountability. That's all you have to say. And this is the time to say it. The deadline is October 31. Today's the 29th. 29, 30, 31. And I didn't even study under Common Core. Will you do that?
Yes. Absolutely.
Can I hear it again?
Yeah.
Hey! I'm finished, Maria.
You didn't give me a chance to stand up. I wanted to do that, Rosie.